All right, so we got a couple more people trickling in, so figured we might as well get started and have a conversation about mentoring and career development for tech teams. My name is Jeff McWherter. I am the COO at GravityWorks. We're a digital agency. We've been around for about 17 years, founded up in Michigan, but we're fully distributed. We do a lot of work in government, the state of Michigan, redoing their website a couple times, a lot of local governments as well, with some county websites, and a little bit of Fed stuff that we've done with Department of Transportation throughout the years. We went through an acquisition. I sold the company in 2021 to Michigan Farm Bureau. So we went from a company of around 22 to having the resources of a 1,500 employee company. So we'll talk a little bit about that. So we definitely have experience with the mentoring side from a smaller type consulting company, moving over into larger types of organizations where we have formal mentoring that needs to happen, and then seeing it into some of our clients as well. So it is the afternoon, and I know everybody is sleepy, and I am definitely feeling those effects as well. So I'm going to try to keep my energy up and try to have a good conversation with everybody. So I guess really where I want to start is, why does mentoring matter? Why do we want to have these conversations, and why do we want to develop the employees that we're working with? Retention beats rehiring, for sure. We want to keep people because it makes our job easier. And when our employees are doing great, they're doing awesome, it does make our jobs easier, makes our life easier. Faster delivery when questions get answered early. And strong mentoring improves code quality and cross-team trust. Also, it just makes for a better work environment where everybody is working towards common goals. We're trying to better ourselves. We're having conversations. It just seems to be better organizations. I've been part of organizations in the past where there hasn't been any mentoring going on, no expectations of learning, and it's actually been pretty rough emotionally. So I want to mention onboarding new employees, onboarding of projects. Some organizations, this is pretty much all the mentoring that somebody might get. It's just a checklist of, do you have your, and this is our onboarding checklist, do you have your Mac password? Do you have your 1Password review? And then after you go through this checklist, you are thrown into the fire to continue doing your job and working. And that's definitely not the best of environments. I think that having a strong onboarding plan is really important. That's the first part of mentoring. It's making sure that people feel that they're supported. At the end of the day, when somebody hires in at your organization, it's a two-way street, right? They're honored to have the job, right? They're happy to be that they were selected, but the organization has to be very happy about the person that they selected, right? You're here, we want to make sure that we're making the most of that. When we were in office, not fully distributed, kind of half distributed, I think we perfected that onboarding. I think that we had the checklist, we made people feel at home, and if it wasn't an employee at the office, maybe we went a little bit overboard with the 5 t-shirts, the GravityWorks t-shirts that they got, the marketing materials, the beanies and everything, but we just wanted to make them feel part of the team and know that they were welcome. So hopping in back over into mentoring and mentorship, there's a couple things I believe in this space that we have some shared definitions around. We have the word mentoring, coaching, sponsorship, teaching, and manager. And all of these are similar, but they mean something a little bit different. And I think that especially the word sponsorship is the one that really sticks out to me, that it wasn't until the last 4 years that being acquired by a larger organization that I truly understood what the word sponsorship meant, and having peers that were opening doors, sponsoring your project, relating people to other people to get things done. So we definitely have these different meanings for things that are similar but different. And the bigger the organization you have, the more that you see these start to split out. So I think this is the biggest difference that I have. Has anybody watched Ted Lasso? Anybody a fan of Ted Lasso? I love that show, right? From a leadership standpoint, from project manager standpoint, this is one of those shows I watch, and it doesn't make me feel good. It makes me feel bad. It makes me want to be a better leader. It wants me to open up and talk to employees and have good relationships with them. So I think this is a great example between these two folks, even if you haven't watched the show. You have the gentleman in the glasses, Ted Lasso. He's the head coach. He's the leader, right? He is defining what winning looks like. He is defining winning isn't just winning a game. It's making a difference in these young people's lives. That is his directive. And then you have Coach Beard here, who's the manager. He's implementing the plan that Ted put in place. And there's some episodes where Coach Beard gets a little upset that it's not about winning the games because they're at a different level. They're not at a college level anymore. It's people's livelihoods. But that, in my mind, is definitely Beard's the manager managing what Ted is putting in place. And Ted is definitely a leader with some good leadership skills there. So, as coaches and as mentors, we have lots of different coaching styles. And I want to talk a little bit about the differences of these coaching styles. We have autocratic, which is crisis clarity. You use this when production is burning. You have a data leak. You have a risk. It sounds like I am the decider for the next hour. We're going to do this. We are going to do that. The next one we have is democratic. We use when there's multiple viable approaches. You want buy-in, you want learning. It sounds like we have two paths. They both look good. Make a case in 5 bullets, and we'll have a conversation about it, and we'll vote to commit. The next one, transformational. It is inspiring when things need following through. You use it when kicking off big goals. Maybe it's an accessibility goal, a performance goal. Maybe it's an upgrade from Drupal 7 to Drupal 10 to 11. Just these big things. It sounds like here's the future we're building and why this matters to our customers, why it matters to our users. Next we have holistic. It is when we have the risk of burnout, career crossroads, returning from leave, when confidence dips down. That sounds like what is your workload outside of work? Is this pace of work that you're working on sustainable? Accountability type coaching is very honest. You need evidence of progress. Review cycle time, on-call readiness. It sounds like the goal was PRs with less than 300 lines. This week we had averaged 500 lines in our pull requests. What's going on? What can we do better here? So mindful, basically being present, how we're going to feel, just having conversations, talking to people, being in the know of what's going on, not only in work, but maybe in their personal lives, just being there and being there for folks. And then the last one is directive. This is useful when you have new hires. Maybe it's a new technology stack that you're working on, and it sounds like follow this checklist. I'll watch the first time you go through it, and then we'll have conversations on it. So these different types of coaching styles can be used at different times. What you need today and what people need today, tomorrow might be very different. So somebody who is maybe a youth or maybe somebody new in a technical stack, maybe you start off with directive. You're giving them checklists. You're checking in with them often. And then it shifts eventually when you establish the trust. You get to know them over into a democratic type leadership style. Crisis at work. I know that I've been in these situations where sometimes you just need to pick it up and you just need to have conversations and you need to start directing. I equate that to being a conductor, an orchestra conductor. You're conducting things. You're saying, I need you to do this, I need you to do this, I need you to do this. And I think there's ways that you need to be very careful when you're using this method, not to come off as being strict or being rude or cutting people off, but sometimes you just need to give people tasks to get done. And then as that fire starts to level out a little bit, you can start moving into more accountability types of coaching. So this is an interesting story that I have. Is I have a mentor that I meet with every Friday, and he's really good. He's really good about reading people, and he just always knows the right thing to say. And this Friday, and let me stop and give you guys a caveat. I get very emotional, so when I start tearing up, there's a picture of my daughter in here. I'm definitely going to tear up at, so don't get freaked out. So I might tear up at this one too, so don't get too freaked out. But my mentor last week just blew out of the water, threw this question at me that I don't know where it came from, but he asked, Jeff, when's the last time you've been to a doctor? Right? It's just, we talk about work things, we talk about all these things, but he said, I've noticed you haven't had a cough for a little while, and sometimes when I get stressed out, my throat kind of swells up, so I cough a little bit. And he cared. It was just something that was a different coaching style where it was just blew me out of the water. Just such a nice guy. So the cost of a bad coach. When I graduated from college, we're going back many years ago, my first job out of college was I created IVR systems for banks. So you had your phone, you'd call into your bank and you'd say, it was voice, this is going back to like 2000, what is the balance in my checking account? So it was pretty cool back then. Even in 2000, we had some voice systems that we were working on. But I had a bad boss, and I could do probably 10 presentations on bad boss, and I could write a book on bad boss, on all the things that he did. A couple stories about bad boss was during the interview process. I was 22 years old, in college, trying to look how to distinguish myself, set myself apart from candidates. So I went through the Microsoft certifications. I took MCSD, MCSE, and that was a lot for a 20-year-old. And I was really proud that I went through those certifications. During the interview process, he looked at that and said, oh, you have MCSD. Well, we have a secretary here who has that too. So number one, I was like, well, that secretary's killing it, right? If she went through and she did all that, that's awesome. But it was meant to belittle me and put me down that you're not hot shit because you did this. It's just, those are just letters. That doesn't mean anything. Other stories, I say that these are great stories, but these are horrible stories when I say them out loud. It was early morning, Microsoft Messenger, we always use Microsoft Messenger. He'd messaged me, come here. No context ever. Like, you never got, hey, could you come in here, can we have this conversation? It was just, come here. If we were lucky, because we were close enough that he could yell out of his office, hey Jeff, come in here. He'd do that a lot too. But it was a Microsoft message, and he was on his phone, and he needed me for something for the call that he was on. Early morning, I walk in, and I sit next to his desk, and the sunlight is shining through his window. And he's on the phone, and I reach over, and I close the blinds, because the sunlight's coming through, and it's in my eyes, and he's ignoring me for this whole thing. He's on the call, he's talking, puts his hand over the phone, looks at me, and says, if you touch my blinds again, I'm going to break your fingers. And then he goes back on, and he starts having the conversation. I'm 22 years old. I've had jobs at McDonald's. I've had other jobs in college. Very much so, you do what you're told. You take a break when we have a break. How does a 22-year-old cope with something like that? And I think I still have some stress over that I brought over in here. One last story on that is our machines were locked down to the point that he would set up our machines so that they were set up like his environment, so that when we would make a mistake and he would have to come over and help us with code, that it looked like his environment. It was just very passive aggressive. So, and this is where the tears are coming out a little bit. I have a 13-year-old daughter and a 10-year-old daughter, and they both do competitive cheer. And they've been doing it for 7 years now. They've been doing it since they've been really little. And the gym we were at, my oldest daughter about 3 years ago, had a coach that didn't hear her, didn't listen to her. She would say that she was hurt, and she just wouldn't listen to her. And my daughter said,
I'm done. I'm out. I don't want to do the sport anymore. And we supported it. We're very much so, okay, we get that. Because of the community that we're in and the people that we're in that we work with, they came out to her and said, don't leave the sport yet. We want you to try another gym. We have this coach that I think that you'll be awesome with. And it took the right people to bring her back into the sport and to have that love of that sport. And this is her coach. And last year at the finals in Florida, there's a big competition in Florida every year. It's a 2-day competition. On the first day, they were placed in second, and we're going into like 200 teams that they're competing against, not only from this country, but from around the world. They're placed in second out of all these teams. And the second day, they're going into competition, and this is what the coach said to them. I gave you this routine. You worked hard on this routine. The judges like you. I'm proud of you. Do your best today. That's it. No pressure. No good luck. No work hard. I got you. I see you. That's why she loves it. That's why she loves that coach. That's why I love that coach. That coach sees her. And when you surround yourself with people like that, you watch those shows like Ted Lasso, they make you think, what can you do better? So one of the big things, I'm really big about owning and being authentic and owning your mistakes. Own it loud. I always say own it loud. If you make a mistake, your employees need to see it. They need to see your mistakes and you need to talk through it. I'm going to go back to my bad boss story. We had this demo system, and it was for potential people to call into the demo system. The salespeople used it, and it was my responsibility to keep that demo system up. And one day the demo system was down, and bad boss noticed that demo system was down. He called me into the office and yelled at me. It wasn't just what can we do better? It was yelling and being screamed at about this, to the point of him lying and saying that we had lost sales. It was very abusive. So after that, again, 22 years old, somehow I mustered enough courage to walk over to the CEO's office and say, I apologize. That was my fault. The demo was down. I apologize that we potentially lost the sale. And the CEO looked at me and he said, what are you talking about? And he said, let me bring in the sales guy. So he brought in one of the sales guy. Nope, no idea what you're talking about. So bad boss missed an opportunity for a chance at leadership. He could have helped me through a situation and said, what can we do better? This is going back. We didn't have a lot of monitoring tools back then, and I don't even think that box was on the internet back then, but there's things that we could have did to make sure that it was up, but instead he chose to be abusive about that. So a question that I often ask myself is, did I make space for the employee? Am I reacting or responding? And am I willing to adjust? So a micro playbook about this with some do's and some don'ts are give credit loudly and correct privately. And next is setting clear expectations and tie it to the belief. Pair directive teachings with reflective questions. I'm a big fan of reflective questions, asking people what they think about things, having conversations. Don't gatekeep with shame. Don't confuse volume with leadership. When I say volume, I don't mean the tone of your voice. I mean the amount of taking over a meeting. Don't take over the meetings. Leave room for other people to talk. And then treat people output as machines. People are not machines. People are people, and you get better results when we're mentoring them and thinking about them as well. So your coaching legacy, people don't remember the project, they remember you. They remember how they were treated. I remember projects that I worked on 10 years ago, and I don't remember the results of them or how many hours that I worked on them, but I do remember if the manager treated me well or if they didn't. You don't need to be perfect, you just need to be present. I say that a lot. I say that a lot to myself. And I also ask myself a lot of times, how do you want to be remembered? the mentor that I mentioned that I have right now, when we were acquired, he was the VP of IT. And going from owning a business for about 15 years and then having a boss all of a sudden, it was a big change. And he was amazing. He was just a super nice guy. And he's the type of guy that you think, like, he would handwrite birthday cards and handwrite thank you notes and things that I've tried to replicate, but I just can't do, or I'm not willing to do, that he was willing to do. And he's remembered in his department and with my team at Gravity Works and me as just being a very great leader, at being able to mentor people and have these conversations. I don't think I'll ever be remembered like that. I think how I'll be remembered is I get stuff done. And I don't know if I like that. Like, I do get stuff done, but I want people to know that I care about them. I want their careers to definitely be better. So I think that's really important. So as we get into a little bit more about mentoring folks, this is probably the number one thing that I see in IT. And I see it in young folks. I see it in people that have been in the career for a while. And it's in imposter syndrome. And we spend a lot of time at Gravity Works having these conversations. And the biggest key that I have here is telling people you wouldn't be here if you weren't capable. Your talents are amazing, right? You are great. It's an honor that you're here at our company. So what we try to do is we try to normalize doubt. We let everybody know that they feel that everybody feels uncertain about some things. But honestly, sometimes you just have to roll up your sleeve and start working on it. This is another bad boss example I just thought of. 22 years old, this is back, probably would have been, it was Visual Basic 6 we were writing code in. You had to compile Visual Basic code. So I'd write my code, and before I'd hit the compile button, I'd get all nervous. Is this gonna compile? Is this gonna work? And I asked him, stupidly of me, I asked him, do you ever get nervous when you compile your code? No, it just always works. Yeah, flyer, right? That was an example to normalize doubt. I was having doubt. That was another example where he could have stepped in and he could have mentored me and helped me be better. I also mentioned in here evidence review. I think that's key. I think that's extremely important of showing people that you did this PR. You did this. This is what you did. You reviewed this code, so now you can go and you can write this code. You can help people. You can do this stuff. Showing people what they've done and being excited about it, even if it is silly. I remember an internship that I applied to, so this would have been while I was in college. And going back to Visual Basic 6, writing Visual Basic 6, I can remember I created a form that just had buttons on it, and you click the buttons and it like did a message box or something like that. It was literally like the easiest thing that you could have did, but the person I was interviewing with like patted me on the back. They didn't. I was a brand new programmer. I didn't know anything, and they were being supportive, and I did the internship, and I learned a ton of stuff there, and that was amazing. Practice builds identity. So identity follows repetition. So tiny, repeatable actions, habits, the story you and others believe about you. So going back to the PR example, what does a good PR look like? And I think every company has their different standards about what pull requests look like and what they should be. Less than 500 lines of code, you have a description in it. Did you write tests? Do you have documentation? And when people are following those habits and they break those habits and you call them out and say, we want 300 lines in the PR, you did 5, is there a reason for that? And you have those conversations. You create these habits that people are using these habits over and over and over again. We do reflections, what we learned and what we're going to try next. So going along with imposter syndrome, this is another thing we struggle with a lot is people don't want to ask questions. And I, for
years have been trying to break this down and figure out why people don't want to ask questions. I ask questions. I spend like 15 minutes trying to do something. I'll try it myself. I'll Google it, and then as soon as I can't do that, then I just reach out in Slack. Hey, has anybody ever done this before? Sometimes I'm ignored, and sometimes I get an answer right away. But for some reason, people don't want to do that. I'm starting to see that people are more willing to reach out to ChatGPT and Claude and asking questions there. And if a lot of times they're just rubber ducking with these things, and it's getting them to the answer that they need, which I think is really good. But I think it's very important to have these conversations. And the thing that we jump up and down about is we're a consulting company, and you just spun your wheels for 3 hours trying to figure this thing out. We can't, in good faith, charge the client that, right? We can probably charge them maybe 15, 20 minutes for this, but if you would have asked, we would be able to bill that and bill the time that you asked, because it's, making progress and not spinning wheels. Having communication channels with this is extremely important. Office hours is a method that a lot of my team leaders like to use. Hey, I don't have any meetings scheduled from these hours. I'm around if anybody wants to chat. Just pop in, we'll have a conversation. And they're open in Google Meet sometimes they're in Slack, and people just jump in and they have conversations. A lot of times we need to prompt people about what have they tried. What have you tried? What feels stuck? And then what does done look like? Because again, I use the word consulting company, we gold plate things a lot of times. We spend a lot of times doing things that we probably don't need to do, but we need to have conversations with people that may have not read the requirements or asked for helps on it to know. So to help with the imposter syndrome, to get over it, it comes from evidence. Competence is a result. No matter how many times you tell somebody something, they have to learn their lesson on their own. And I think that's a lesson that I have a hard time teaching to new managers, to new leaders who are trying to manage their team, that a lot of times you can't grab the task away from them and just do it for them. You just got to let them fail. And you have to give them a safety net. And what does that safety net look like? There's lots of different ways to do safety nets, but it's constant being in communication. It's watching that to know that thing that the manager would have took an hour to do doesn't go over 3 hours. It's setting those expectations and knowing that. So going back into some things that are a little bit more formal, some mentoring models that work. We have one-on-one matched pairs. So when folks come into Gravity Works, usually between 6 to 12 months, they have a pair. They're working with somebody constantly on almost everything that they're working on. It's very much as it sounds, two people coding, using different tools, and working on tasks together. The next model is peer circles, where it's 4 to 6 people. These are monthly meetings. There are front-end dev meeting. There are back-end dev meeting. Then we also do a front-end, back-end meeting every other month, where both teams come together and they have conversations. But it's giving people the opportunity to present issues, to work through as a team. And I think after a couple times of doing these types of meetings, people understood what types of issues they could present there. There's some issues that it should just be a one-on-one, where I want to, this is a really hard issue and I want to work with my team lead on this, versus, this is a hard issue, but I think everybody on this team needs to be aware of this, because we have all these Drupal 7 upgrades that we need to do, and everybody's going to have to do this, so it makes sense to just do it in this team environment. As we have younger folks, we've had success with reverse mentoring, where the individual contributor, the new employee, leads on the technical and some of the customer aspects, where if you can teach it, you can do it sort of mentality, where folks are getting really good and getting comfortable. So if they can teach it, they're pretty good. Micro mentoring, so we talked a little bit about that, like the office hours, or maybe like 20-minute consults. And then this last one, I have a couple of slides on this one. This is a little bit more in depth, shadow ladders.
And we've used shadow ladders in the past, and shadow ladders have a couple aspects to them, defined aspects to them, where the individual contributor, the new employee, is observing. They watch somebody do the task. So they're sitting in on client demos, maybe a sales handoff. They're writing the notes down, creating checklists. Then eventually they move to assisting, where they're able to take a small piece of that. They're running the QA portion of a demo. Maybe they're doing the test plans or the meeting notes. And the evidence is maybe they merged the PR or they created demo scripts. Eventually it leads into doing a co-lead, where the ownership of the task is split 50-50, where you have folks doing, you have the team lead and that individual doing 50-50. Maybe somebody's writing the code, somebody's writing the test, somebody's leading the communication, somebody's doing the work, doing the testing. Then moving over into leading with a safety net, getting to the point where you establish what is that safety net inside of here. So that employee is now maybe running the demos. They're going to be the primary on the call, but they have that team lead there to support them. And the team lead knows enough not to step on their toes, to overtalk them, but they're just there in case they need help. And then it goes back into that area where it's if you can teach it, then you definitely know it, where that IC is going through and actually teaching, mentoring somebody else through the same type of things. So rituals that stick. It's really important for us to have buddies when we hire folks. I'm still involved in the onboarding. I spend about a half a day with folks. Mainly because we're fully distributed, and how do you teach culture to people that are distributed? And the only way to do that is spend time with them. And I spend a good portion of folks the first day, at least a half a day, and then throughout the next weeks I spend time with that. But in that first 90 days, having a buddy for them to be very confident with. Sometimes it's the team leader, sometimes it's me, sometimes it's other folks. Weekly pairing blocks on hours, and these rituals are some rituals that work for us, but it's important to figure out what works for your organization, figuring out what you guys like. Monthly tech talks and demo days. This is interesting, this evolved, so we do lightning talks every Friday, and what we consider lightning talks, and what I try to tell people is, I don't want you to prepare for your lightning talk. Literally, it's a half-hour talk about something that you know so well that you probably don't really need to talk about. Sometimes it's work-related. More often than not, we're talking about somebody's chickens or somebody's, well, my trip to San Diego Comic-Con last month. You know, it's those sorts of things that I can just bring up some photos and show, but it's creating that mentorship that people like. And then we get a really good topic about like accessibility or something going on like that. It just really makes it a vulnerable space for people to who might not be comfortable talking or doing a big presentation to talk about that. So this is something that I really like to talk about, and that's metrics. And being web developers, we all like metrics, right? We get lots of different metrics from Google Analytics. So Google Analytics was amazing when it came out all those years ago because it told us what we should start caring about. But I know sometimes we have a hard time when we're creating case studies for clients to come up with metrics that potential clients would care about. How many clicks, how many conversions? Sometimes we don't have access to that. So I think that metrics, I like to use the phrase, what gets measured gets managed. So having metrics are important, but measuring the right thing. So metrics that matter, use them to learn, not to publish or punish. So different types, there can be maybe your learning velocity. So the stuck to ask interval, so that issue about people not asking questions can we measure that? Can we figure out how much time is in there, and can we track that to see if we're improving on that? Leading indicators, participation rate in mentoring, review cycle time and comment usefulness, how many questions answered in Slack. These are things that a lot of times you bring these up and you ask folks about this, and they come back and say, I don't want to be tracked, right? Don't track me. I'm doing my job, don't track me. And you have to explain it and say, we're not trying to track you. We get that you're doing your job. It's just we want to help you do better. So since we're at Drupal GovCon, and sometimes we have maybe some policies that we don't want to follow. They're bigger policies, and they're tough sometimes. So maybe something like a skills matrix where you have this list of technologies. This one isn't that bad, but maybe it might say XML inside of there, technologies that might not be used anymore. How can you be successful with these things that you might not have control over? And I think it's important to own that, to talk to the employees about it and say that, there's only so much that we can do. We can work on these, we can try to do better, but let's focus on some of these ones that we know. So we are very keen on code quality and reviews, and that's there. So let's focus on that one versus XML or Angular that we don't use anymore, or things like that. So I think that I get that these have to be there. I've worked at organizations where we've had to do actually reviews based on this and reviews based on how people are learning, leading into bigger documents like individual development plans and things like this. I think it's important just to own it and figure out how to make it work for you. Be honest about it. Talk to your team. How can we change this? What can we do? And then try to go through the right channels to change it. More than likely, you're not going to be able to change it. Sometimes you can. Sometimes it's like turning a battleship. You just can't do it. But doing what you can do with the best that you're given. So when you're developing mentoring programs, it's important to just keep them simple. Have conversations about what the purpose of them are, the matching, the agreement, so how you're going to communicate, your channels, the privacy if you have somebody who doesn't want to talk about certain things with the rest of the group. Just setting those expectations, the cadence, how often you're going to do it, and then support. How are you going to support those individuals? I think it's a case-by-case basis for individual. We just had the conversation earlier this week about formal training plans. Some employees have them, some don't. And I think it's because some are senior folks and they just want to be left alone. But there's opportunities that those managers have an internal training plan that they're working. They're like my mentor, where they're asking me questions like, have you gone to the doctor? What have you done for yourself? They have those in their back pocket that they're helping those people that grow, that it's not just about the technologies that they're working on. So there's a couple frameworks that we can use, and one is called the GROW framework. And I'll hop into these, but these are how we can have some great conversations and help with mentoring. So the GROW coaching model is goal, reality, options, and then a way forward. So if we go over in here, go back to the imposter syndrome. The goal is reduce I don't belong. With those new spikes and new technologies that folks are working on. The reality is that individual is it doesn't ask for help. They spin their wheels for like 2 or 3 hours. What are their options? Well, you could do the 30-minute stuck rule. So if you're stuck for 30 minutes, you have to ask. Maybe it's having an evidence log of wins. Maybe it's a buddy check-in, so we have some options. And then the last one, again, is the way forward. Set a timer today. Post if they're still blocked. Add 2 wins to a log by Friday. Buddy syncs on Wednesday. So this is something that we've seen work. I get
I get a lot of pushback from my team when I implement something like this. They call them trust falls. They just don't like structure like this. So a lot of times with my team, I have to do this behind the scenes, especially with this one. And this one you really have to dress up because it sounds very robotic. But feedback is a gift, and feedback is very difficult to receive sometimes, and you as the person giving the feedback have to be constructive about it. You have to be very careful about how you give that feedback, but it's the only way that we know that folks get better. So this is a known model called situation, behavior, impact. So a very constructive way of doing this is in the PR this morning, there were no tests for the new hook. It took longer, and we risked regressions in checkout. Very robotic. If anybody's done behavior-driven development with BDD-type tests, it's very, very similar to that. I would think developers might like this a little bit more, but it's just so robotic that you just really have to dress it up. And there's ways to dress this up to accomplish the same thing. And there's a thing called the compliment sandwich. If you have bad news to give somebody, or you need to help correct somebody, you give them a compliment, you say the bad news, and then you compliment them again. I'm not a big fan of that, right? If you did something wrong, we need to have the conversation. We need to be very direct about it. This is not a compliment sandwich. This is just a way to be very clear that this is what happened, this is what you did, and this is what the impact was. So we've been remote for many years. We were hybrid before COVID quarantine, where we were about half and half. Then quarantine happened, we went fully distributed, and we have not gone back, but we're still learning. I think a lot of people are still learning. A lot of people are still trying to do better. We have conversations a lot about what we can do to be better remote. And one of the items is async first. Shared docs, a video call. Show this real quick if I can. This will be nice to me. Throw this guy over there. I see a lot of folks starting to use, get it up there, use Loom. And I'm not going to have the voice on it, but he's just going through something, a call that he had where he needs to get his thoughts together, and he's not ready to have a conversation with me. He's going through what needs to be done, and maybe he pauses it, maybe he stops a little bit, and then when he gets his thoughts together, he sends it over to me. So this is just a real easy way, instead of I don't want to use the word bugging, but a lot of people use that word. I don't want to bug you. So they send a video, they send the slides, they send what they're showing, text messages, things like that. We try to do things async first before pushing it to the next level. Pairing tools, actually I'll show this one too. I don't know, Visual Studio Code, the live share tools inside of there. I know our devs use those a lot. And if you haven't seen those, it's very similar to this tool, Tuple. If I can get my mouse down, you can kind of see where you have the two cursors with different folks. They're able to underline, they're able to do these sort of things. These things are happening asynchronously. They're having these conversations, they're writing in code together, which just makes it so much easier to do these types of things. Other things remote, we have people spread out between different time zones, so time zone fairness, being respectful of people's time zones, not having people wake up at 6 a.m. to have a meeting is definitely big. And I go back to the office hour windows for quick help, just making yourself available for folks. So I think we're getting up to time. So just real quick, calls to action. I challenge folks to figure out 2 rituals to start this month with your team. Pick 3 metrics to review monthly with your team, and then make mentoring visible and valuable and valued. So this is what successful mentoring looks like to me. This is my team at an offsite. This is not me up there leading. It's not a team leader up there leading. It is a developer who's worked at the company for a few years, helping facilitate conversations and knowing that he has a safe space to have good conversations with folks. So questions? Yes?
Yeah, with being remote, how do you approach some of the more, like, I'll call it soft skill mentoring, rather than just, fix this on your work, but nurturing and like helping people grow? And then do you have how often do you get together as a team?
Got it.
Yeah.
I'm going to start off and say I hate the word soft skills.
Yeah.
Because those are skills that you use every single day. Those are skills that you need and you need to develop. We do that. We have a weekly team meeting every week. It's a half-hour meeting. I still call it a stand-up because it used to be a stand-up and it just changed into something else. And we have a rubric that we go through and we set that a year in advance of doing team goals, having conversations about this. Last week, we talked about communication. So we were talking about communications, and we do it with breakout rooms are your friend. I usually give a quick 10-minute conversation. We break out, and then sometimes we come back as a team and answer questions together. But we talk about all those sort of things. How to talk to a client, how to talk to your peers, those sort of things happen inside of there. And I'm sorry, the second part of your question was?
How often do you get together in person as a team?
Yep, we try to do it once a year. We try to do an offsite once a year. Chicago has been good for us. Chicago's kind of middle to a lot of our Midwest folks. When we're firing on all cylinders, those offsites are different. Right, they're just more about getting together and having meals and sharing stories. But when we're not firing on all cylinders, they're stressful. And sometimes they've done more harm than good. So I really try to do a virtual one as well, at least once a year or two, to kind of feel it out to see, do we need to get together? Should we maybe skip this year because it's not going to help, sort of thing. But we really try to use conferences to not have the full team together, but to get, if we see that there's 2 or 3 people going to a conference, I try to go to it. So Drupal camp in Florida, I'll go to that. I'll go to Drupal camp in Vienna, I'll probably go to there. We have a couple folks going. And it's not about going to the conference, it's about being with the people and having those conversations. Sitting at the keynote today, it was great. The people that were behind me, I heard them say, "It's great to meet you in person." And that organization was doing the same thing. They had people that had never met in person and they had met here for the first time. Other questions? All right, I think we're at time. So I'm going to leave this up here. I'll get the slides up there on McWherter.net so folks can download them. This will be recorded too, so you can see that there. And then JMCW is my LinkedIn. Please feel free to LinkedIn me. I think LinkedIn is not just for recruiters. I know that it's kind of going downhill lately, but I think that it's a good way to keep track of your business friends and where to find them. So please, LinkedIn, have conversations with me, shoot me questions. I love having conversations with folks. All right, thanks everybody.